welcome to the University of Guelph Arboretum. My name is Kitty. Behind the camera there, that's Jenny.
Hello.
And we are the Naturalist Interns here at the Arboretum. And for today, I thought that it would be really nice to go back to the roots of what an Arboretum is. Because if you are newer to the Arboretum or not quite sure what that word means, I like to think of an arboretum as a museum for trees, because essentially we are a tree garden, but kind of like a museum. We have trees from all over the place. We have some that are native to Ontario or native to Canada, and we have some that are all the way across the world as well, and we have some that are common and some that are really, really rare, even endangered trees and other plant species. So I thought that we go back to today and try and look at some of the plants that really make this place special. And I think one of the absolute coolest things to see in our plant collections are the examples of rare plants that will be really tough for you guys to see out there in the wild, but you can come and visit them here, right here in the Arboretum. And to help you out if you are exploring the grounds, we have a series of signs called Beware of the Rare to help highlight some of the rare species we have here, which is pretty awesome. Now, for this video, we thought that we focus on a couple of these different rare plants, and we're going to start right here at the Ohio Buckeye. So the Ohio Buckeye is a native tree to Ontario, but it's pretty rare considering it's only found in one spot near Lake St. Clair in southwestern Ontario. So it's not very commonly found in the wilds at all, but you can see them planted ornamentally in different places and here at the Arboretum as well. And you can recognize them by their leaves. So they have compound leaves, which means each leaf, this is one leaf, and each leaf is made up of several different leaflets, so smaller leaflets, and they all radiate out from the same point. We call this palmate. So this is called a palmate compound leaf, and this is a very typical diagnostic leaf feature of the Ohio Buckeye. But I don't even think that's the coolest part about this tree, because I think one of the best parts about this tree is actually its fruit. So I see some of the fruits way up high, but maybe we can go over on that side. We'll find some closer to us that we can take a good look at. So I got some good ones here for you guys to take a look at. So this is what the fruit of the Ohio Buckeye looks like. It's very rounded, it's kind of spiky, and inside the fruit they have around 3 dark seeds on the inside. And the reason that a plant like this will produce fruit is to help disperse its seeds. It wants the seeds to go far, far away from the parent plant in order to spread its genetics and get the best chance at finding the perfect place to grow into a new tree. So that's why trees produce fruits like this. Except the Ohio Buckeye fruit is really special because of its dispersal method. You see, this fruit is not very yummy for a lot of animals, so it's not dispersed by animals, and it's kind of heavy, so it's not dispersed by wind. The wind can't blow it very far, but what it is it is very buoyant, so it floats really well in water. And the reason it has these round fruits is so that when it drops the fruit into the ground, it can roll and roll and roll and roll until it finds maybe like a little river, and it's gonna float in that water, and the river's gonna carry it downstream and deposit it somewhere else far, far away where it can grow into a whole new Ohio Buckeye tree. So that's actually why it has these rounded fruits, which is pretty awesome. It's a pretty unique dispersal method, I think. All right, now this is not the only rare plant we have. Like I said, we have a whole bunch of different rare plants in the Arboretum, which is pretty cool. So we're gonna take a bit of a journey to see if we can visit another rare plant here in the Arboretum. So follow me. Two crow friends hanging out on that tree. Special crow feature. Not a rare tree, but still pretty cool. let us know we found what we're looking for. And you know what? When people think of the cactus plant, most people would envision maybe the scorching hot desert, somewhere where it's really dry, and certainly not here in Ontario for the most part. But did you know that we actually have a native cactus species that live right here in Ontario? So this is the eastern prickly pear, a native cactus to Ontario. Usually found in the very southern tip of Ontario. It likes to live in sandy soils and out in the sun. So a good place to find them actually in the wild is at Point Peely. But these eastern prickly pears, you can see they're made up of these round flattened stems. We call these guys pads. And there's a little toad here as well. I don't know if
he snuck away.
He snuck away before I could show him to you guys, but there's a little toad hiding in this cactus, which is a pretty good place for him to hide, considering that predators will have a hard time getting through all of these spines. So cactus, you might be familiar with, have a very special defense mechanism. They have all of these pokey spines all over them, and that makes it really difficult for herbivores to come and chew on these pads, because that means they're going to get a mouthful of spines and it wouldn't be very comfortable. So they stay really well protected like this. The plant version of a porcupine, really. They're really nice and spiny. And these guys are endangered in Ontario, so that means they're at risk of getting wiped out from the wild completely, which is really, really sad. But some of the things that are affecting them are habitat loss. So they like to live in like nice sandy shorelines along Lake Erie. And unfortunately, that can erode away, so a lot of their habitat is being lost. And they really like to live in the sun. They can't be shaded out by other plants, so when other trees and shrubs are growing over them and shading them out, that doesn't create a very nice place for them to live either. So they are an endangered plant here in Ontario. But we have planted some here in the Arboretum farther up north than you would normally find them here in the wild in Ontario for you guys to see and enjoy. And it's a particularly lovely time to enjoy them right now because they are flowering. So you can see there's one bright yellow flower there that produce these big waxy yellow flowers. And these flowers are actually pollinated by insects. So lots of insects will come and collect the pollen and spread it to other plants to pollinate them. And they're a very pretty flower as well. And once that flower is pollinated, eventually it's gonna produce fruit. And this fruit is eaten up by animals like birds and small mammals. So we talked about how the Ohio Buckeye tree likes to disperse its seeds by water, while this plant uses animals to help disperse its seeds, because animals like birds and small mammals will munch on down on that fruit and eat the whole thing, including the seeds inside. And then they're going to scurry away and find some other place far, far away and then poop it out. Now the seeds and this poop has now traveled a good long way away from the parent plant, which is what it wants, and it has landed in a big pile of animal poop, which is fantastic fertilizer. So then it could grow into a whole new cactus. That's actually how this plant uses animals to help disperse its seeds. Although the cactus can actually reproduce asexually as well, so different segments of these stems, we call them pads, they can actually break off and take root somewhere else, so it can reproduce and spread without having to produce flowers and fruits as well, which is pretty cool. So this is a cool plant to keep an eye out for, because not a lot of people know we have cactus here in Ontario, but we do, the eastern prickly pear. All right, we have another rare plant just around the corner, so I'm going to turn it over to Jenny to tell you all about it. Yeah, this neat little corner here at the Arboretum is full of these rare plants. And again, keep an eye out for those beware the rare signs. And we're just going to take a little stroll over to our next plant. So here we are. And you can see the sign just over there telling us that this is a rare plant to keep an eye out for. But this is shining sumac. Now, a lot of people are familiar with sumac. They're a plant that you might see around, but what you might not know is there's a lot of different types of sumac you'll find here in Ontario. The one that's most common and that's a lot of people are familiar with is staghorn sumac. So this guy right here. So this nice tall shrub-like tree with those compound leaves. So just like the Ohio Buckeye, these sumacs have compound leaves, and I can show you an example on the shining sumac. Same as the Ohio Buckeye, this whole thing is one leaf, and the leaf vein is actually just divided into little leaflets here. These guys aren't palmates like the Ohio Buckeye where they all come off at one point, but they are still a compound leaf. So both the shining sumac and the staghorn sumac that most people are familiar with have these compound leaves, but the shining sumac is named for its leaf. These guys have super shiny leaves. You see how glossy they are. And these guys are also sometimes called, another common name for them, winged sumac, because if you see on the leaf axis, so just right over here, they have little wings on them. So that's really cool. I love a well-named plant. Nice and descriptive. And this is a really cool plant. Definitely not one that you're likely to see around the wild very often, but they are used as an ornamental in a lot of different places. So if you're at the Arboretum or maybe another garden center, definitely want to keep a good eye out for. And they're very pretty now. I think they're a beautiful sumac. But in the fall, it's an amazing sight because the leaves turn bright, flaming red. So like how some people like to watch the maples turn red, this is another plant that you can watch change color in the fall, and they're super pretty to have a good look at. And just like the staghorn sumac that we talked about earlier, the more common one, these guys also make a fruit as well. So these guys, like the cactus, is also dispersed by animals. Their fruit get eaten up by different animals, and those animals go elsewhere and they poop out the seed in a nice fertilizing pile of manure, and that's how these guys get their seeds dispersed. So a pretty awesome plant, not one that you'll see around a ton, but a good one to keep a good eye out for. And it's not a plant, but right above us we have a bunch of turkey vultures soaring. So I don't know if you guys want to get a good look at that, because it's a really nice hot day today. So we have a lot of turkey vultures taking advantage of the hot air, riding the hot air thermal, soaring around. So that's pretty awesome. Not the most on-topic thing, but definitely a good thing to keep a good eye on the sky always, because we never know what wildlife is around. Because we have so many different types of plants, it creates a lot of different types of habitats for all sorts of species. Yeah, already awesome. Today we've got crows, a toad, and turkey vultures. So much wildlife. Yeah. Why don't we actually continue on to our last plant that we wanted to showcase today, and we'll keep an eye out on the way for different animals that we might find as well. Another animal feature, here's a gray squirrel. It's called a gray squirrel, but it's all black, and gray squirrels can come in black, it can come in gray, and they can come in brown. It can also be leucistic, so we always hear about leucistic birds with patches of white, but these guys have also been reported with like little patches of white fur as well. So eastern gray squirrel includes a lot of different color morphs. I mean, we get a lot of black ones here. He seems a little weary of us, so we'll move along not to bother him too much. Looks like this has turned into the rare plant and wildlife walk, which is pretty awesome. Alright, so here we are. We made it! This is our cucumber tree, and we definitely were talking rare plants. We don't want to go without mentioning cucumber tree. This is an amazing species, and this actually is Canada's only magnolia, and it was one of the first trees to be called endangered here in Ontario, which is a neat piece of history. It's unfortunate that they're endangered, but it's a cool piece of history to talk about. And one of the things that threatens these guys is deforestation and habitat loss. So as trees get cut down and suitable habitat for them get developed, there's just not a lot of opportunity for them to grow in the wild. And in the wild, unfortunately, populations take a long time to recover, have a lot of trouble recovering because they're really separated. So you may only get a few cucumber trees a far distance away from each other. So there's not a lot of cross-pollination in between, which makes things hard. But we have an example here for you guys to see and enjoy if you're visiting Arboretum. And I think they're awesome. So I don't really see any fruit on it yet, but they're called a cucumber tree because they make fruit that look like this little cucumber, basically. It's this kind of oval cylinder that's green and bumpy, and that's why they're called a cucumber tree. And when the fruit matures and the seeds are ready to be dispersed, the seeds actually hang out off of this old fruit, and they're bright red, connected to the tree with these little threads that let them dangle in the wind. And this helps attract birds that will eat these seeds up. So like the sumac and like the cactus, these seeds are dispersed by animals, and specifically birds for the cucumber tree. The birds come to eat those seeds, and birds have amazing dispersal abilities because they can fly so far. So they may fly somewhere very far away and poop up those seeds, and out grows a new baby magnolia, which is pretty cool. So that's our last tree feature, the cucumber tree. And definitely if you're in the Arboretum, we have lots of different other examples of rare trees as well. So again, have a good eye out for beware the rare signs, and that'll lead you to where all the rare trees too. But take a look at some of the non-sign trees as well, because they're also pretty awesome. So thank you guys so much for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you next week.